Hi, everybody. I'm Scott,
And I'm Luke.
And I am Jonathan.
and this is the No Way to Hollywood podcast. Thanks for joining us.
To all of our regular viewers, thanks for hanging in there through this with us, because we enjoy this. I don't know what you don't. Sorry.
That was such a dramatic opening, though. I mean, that's why you're here, right? It's dramatic openings like that, the way we say the same thing we always say when we start the podcast. Yeah?
Well, this was different because Luke apologized, almost like he knows what's coming, and the fact that there are some people.
There's a title right up there that everybody's reading right now. It's like, here's this thing, and some people are like, oh no, not one of these again.
I don't see the title.
Well, we're not even halfway through AFI's top 100 list, guys. So we need to make some progress.
Okay, all of them to the end, right now!
No.
Okay.
We're going to do the next 10. We are currently sitting at
The couch.
number 60.
Okay. So good.
This is why you guys watch. This, the comedy.
Number 60 is Duck Soup.
Nope.
What the flip, dude? What? Duck Soup.
Duck Soup is a 1933 Marx Brothers comedy film.
Oh.
Maybe I have seen it then.
All right, whatever.
Okay, it's just Marx Brothers. Okay, yeah.
Move on.
Do we need to say anything about the Marx
It's
Brothers?
Duck Soup, Marx Brothers.
It's Marx Brothers. You guys already heard us talk about Marx Brothers with slapstick humor back, a few.
Yeah.
Moving on.
All right. Number 59 is Nashville.
What do they want from us?
Nashville is a 1975 American satirical musical ensemble comedy drama film. The film follows various people involved in country and gospel music business in Nashville, Tennessee, over a 5-day period leading up to a gala concert for a populist outsider running for president on the replacement party ticket.
So it's Oklahoma meets.
Didn't you hear, though? It was like every possible genre.
It's genre shattering. Inside joke.
Hey. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm trying to figure out why I would care. I mean, maybe I should try watching it. I don't know. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
I guess we could hypothesize on why movies get onto this list, but without seeing them, it's hard to even begin to guess.
You think that by this level we'd be getting some good movies?
All right, number 58 is The Gold Rush.
This might be one of the shortest episodes we've ever had, and that's for you, regular viewers. That's for you.
The Gold Rush is a 1925 American comedy film written,
They
produced,
really like comedies
and
in this band.
directed by Charlie Chaplin.
Well, Charlie Chaplin's great.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Next.
Yeah, I mean, this band is all about humor.
Next.
Good job, Charlie Chaplin. You rock, man.
Thanks for being on the list. Coming in at number 57, Rocky.
Okay. I can talk a little bit about this.
Dun-dun-dun.
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 It's the eye of the tiger. That doesn't happen until the second. Does it happen? I think it's the second one where that happens. Or is it the third one? It's a little later, I think. Right?
I don't know the answer to this. What do you want to say about Rocky, though?
I know it. I know what Rocky is. That's what I
saw
want
it.
to say. I saw. Have I actually watched the original Rocky? I think I've seen Rocky 2 through 5 and Creed and I think I've seen every Rocky but the original Rocky. I'm sorry, all of you audience viewers out there, but I've definitely seen the infamous scenes, right?
Right.
You gotta go run, and see, that's the thing. That scene, I'll bring this up. That scene is a classic example of basically a plant and payoff of. There's an entire scene that you may not know of if you haven't seen the movie, because you've always, you probably have seen, him Rocky at the top of the stairs being like, yeah, I'm the greatest man. There's a whole other scene that's really important that happens before that. There's a whole other sequence where Rocky's beginning to train, and he's out of shape. And so he goes running. And he goes running over to the docks. He goes running on all these different places, and he's exhausted. He can barely keep going. He like barely makes it up the stairs, and he's just done. He just can't even do it anymore. And the whole like that whole section of the movie is all about him trying to do things and being and failing, and like he is just tired and he can't keep it up. He can't keep going. And then at the other part of the film, right, after he's been training for a while, you finally get this payoff of he goes on the run. He goes to all the same places. He goes to the docks. He goes to the food market. He goes to all these places. People know who he is now because he's been there so many times, and he's not out of breath. He's kicking butt. He's still moving. He's going the whole time. He's got energy up. He's going even faster. He goes up to the top of the stairs, and he's ready to go. He's got energy because he's been training. The whole thing is a plant and payoff, just in case you didn't know.
Luke, do you have any thoughts about Rocky?
It's a boxing movie.
Also, the movie, the movie's about someone losing, but it's all about how well they trained. Like it's all about everything. It's all about the journey. It's not about the destination alone. And so he gets a fight with Apollo Creed. But if I recall, because they go like toe to toe for 10 rounds or whatever, at the end it's called by the judges, and Rocky loses. But he went toe to toe with Apollo. If I got that wrong, that's just proof that I haven't seen the movie.
So why does a movie like this actually make it onto the top 100 list?
Well, I mean, there's definitely iconic things in it, right? And so there are things that to this day you still kind of get right with that stuff. As far as why it's on this list,
What?
This is the precursor to Tom Cruise running.
No. I do wonder, like, I think of the montage and the training montage, and I wonder if I don't think it necessarily invented it, but I'm also wondering if it's one of the first modern sports. In fact, what are sports movies before Rocky? Does anybody know?
I have to do research on that.
I
Yeah.
am not a film historian.
I'm not a sports historian.
I love sports. All right, moving on. Coming in at number 56 is Jaws.
Okay, now this makes sense. This is a movie that should be on the list. I don't even know if it should be this low though. This is pretty low for Jaws. Jaws is great. That's where I'm going to start.
Have you seen it, Luke?
Yeah, I have. Jaws is a lot of fun. I think my favorite story from kind of the behind the scenes part of it is that, they're getting to the end and, they're like, okay, but when you shoot an air tank, it doesn't explode like dynamite. And so like they go to Spielberg and they're like, Spielberg, sorry kid, but like, it doesn't do that. And Spielberg's like, if they've held on through this movie up until this point, they're going to be fine with it exploding. And yes, you cheer. You're like, yeah, got it. That film was plagued with production problems. They couldn't get the shark to work. Stuff just didn't work. Weather was terrible. Everything was bad for this movie. So good job hanging in there.
This is another one of those infamous Spielberg examples where something is not working and Spielberg makes it iconic. Like Indiana Jones, the pulling the gun and shooting the guy. That's because Harrison Ford's sick on the day and he made a joke and Spielberg went with it and said, that's actually good. Let's just scrap the whole fight we had planned and we'll do that. That's actually better in keeping with the character. And in Jaws, the shark wasn't working. The whole thing was this giant shark was supposed to be jumping out of the water, kind of more B movie-ish, think more The Meg, think more like that was kind of more of what it was supposed to be. And the shark wouldn't work. They couldn't get it to get above the water hardly at all. And so Spielberg went with it and made an incredibly tense, terrifying monster that you barely saw, and you only saw the dorsal fin, and that meant something. And Spielberg, he took mistakes, he took problems, and he made them into iconic film history. That's huge. That's crazy. And as far as a behind the scenes thing that I love, a story I love, the actor who plays the shark hunter, that they're on his boat. He's an older guy. He's a well-known actor at that time. And Spielberg liked him and was looking forward to working with him. The guy was drunk a lot, and he did not care. He was kind of showing up and not really knowing his lines. Spielberg's young at this point. This is 70s, so Spielberg's very young. This is one of the movies this is like the movie that makes his name. Okay, so he's not Spielberg. He's just punk kid director that this better, well-known actor does not care about being on set, all this other stuff. Spielberg has to get some cojones and figure out how to handle this. So they're doing the scene where they're all comparing scars, and that character explains his entire backstory of why he hates sharks, the traumatic experience that happened to him. It's a big and very pivotal, dramatic part of the story that sets up things for later and all this stuff, right? And he's not having it. The guy doesn't know his lines. So Spielberg goes up to him and says, if you are not here on time and deliver your lines and do what you need to do, you're fired. Now remember, Spielberg is a punk new director. He's got the authority, he's got the role, but like he's still a punk new director in a lot of ways. This is a well-known actor with some gravitas and some power, potential. And it's like, hey, I'm the director. You're not doing your job. You show up and you do your job, or I'm firing you. The next day, that actor shows up on set completely sober, and he nailed that scene, that entire scene, one of the most iconic parts of that movie for drama. He nails it in one take. He shows up and nails it in one take. Thank you, Mr. Spielberg.
Another story that I love from the behind the scenes, because this movie is so good, is Williams. He's meeting with Williams.
Yeah.
And Williams like, and he's like, hey, can you show me the music? And Williams is like, yeah, here you go. Do 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 do. And Spielberg's like, well, that's pretty awesome. So when can I hear the rest of it? And Williams is like,
you don't understand my creative genius.
This is it.
And it's brilliant. It truly is brilliant. Like, it's great. And that's where also collaboration with really brilliant people, top notch.
If you can't tell by our enthusiasm and the various behind the scenes stories and the way that it's film history, this is why I firmly believe that Jaws is somewhere like at least 30 to 40 movies farther like up the list. But whatever. Totally deserves to be on the top 100.
Moving on,
coming in at number 55 is North by Northwest.
Okay.
I mean, that's a good movie
Some
too.
classic.
I was gonna be like, if this is another terrible movie, I'd be like, this beat Jaws.
Yeah. Outrage. No, North by Northwest is good. Here's okay. So I have a unique perspective on this because I have not seen it, but I've read the script. And I can tell you from the script alone, it's a great movie. The structure and writing of that story and the way you care about things and like the tension of it all, like it's great. And it's a great setup of mistaken identity stuff. And like there's all this great stuff going on in that story that's really enjoyable. And that's just from me reading it. That's again, just from me reading, not even getting into Hitchcock's filmmaking.
Which is, we've discussed on previous episodes, just brilliant in a lot of ways. So thank you, Mr. Hitchcock.
Well, and what I like about it as a filmmaker is that the special effects are not that great. Mm-hmm. Like they truly do not hold up from a like special effects standpoint. But from a story standpoint, it totally doesn't matter. Right? And so as a filmmaker who doesn't have top-notch skills, I'm still like, you know what? If you tell a good story, it's okay that your special effects aren't really great, because this movie isn't about special effects. This movie is about this character and what they're going through. And another behind-the-scenes story, because I love behind-the-scenes and stuff. At the end, your main character is like riding a train with like the female character, and they get up on the bed together. It's like they're gonna be together. And at the time, the ratings agency, whatever, was like, you can't have them getting in bed together if they're not married. Like, we can't do that. Like that, you can't do that. So you have to ADR a line. You have to put in a line that's like, "Come on up, Mrs. Thorpewood," or whatever the name is, right? And Hitchcock didn't like that, so he does it. But then that day, the editor also gets a note that says, "Find a shot of a train going into a tunnel." And that's the last shot in the film. And Hitchcock just slips that in there, and the ratings group just didn't realize what he was doing.
Hitchcock hated the ratings group. He always fought them on a lot of things.
Understandably so. All right. Let's move on. Number 54 is MASH.
I do not understand MASH. I've tried watching the movie. I've tried watching some of the TV show. I understand that it is culturally relevant, if no other reason than the Vietnam War and that generation. Um, and I have never caught on to its humor or into what it really is or about. I have never been able to get in on what MASH is. So that's my personal experience with that. But yeah, all I know is it's a big thing for a generation, particularly because of the Vietnam War.
Yeah, and a lot of this movie, I'm assuming, is definitely going to be more of that cultural relevance, and that's possibly why, and one of the reasons why it's going to make a top 100 list. There is something about the filmmaking process where if you can be that culturally relevant, even if it is to just a generation, you have made something that is genuinely good.
I'll go with it.
Would you say it's kind of a Vietnam War American Graffiti?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think you could put those two things in the same boat. Absolutely. All right. Coming in at number 53 is The Deer Hunter.
Okay.
You actually know this one?
I know this one. I've read about it more and seen some scenes. I wasn't able to get through the whole movie. It's a very long movie, and I was simply I didn't care about the characters fast enough. And I gave it a good chunk of time. I just couldn't get in. I know the basic idea of what happens, and I know there's an infamous Russian roulette scene, I believe, in that film as well.
It's a 3-hour and 4-minute movie. You're right.
It's pretty long and intense, but from what I understand, the gist of it is basically young adults and like the innocence of being in a small town or being in America, having your dreams of having a wife and getting a job and and your friends and your brothers back home and all these different going hunting and these different things that are good and sort of innocent in a way, and then going to Vietnam and watching how all of that gets ripped apart. Yeah, how your life changes, how your perspective on things shifts, how your connections to people begin to hurt you because of all the damage that happens. So that's my understanding of what the film is kind of about. But I have never been able to sit through the whole thing. I never got in enough.
Luke, not seen it. Don't care to. Yeah, based on that, I'm not particularly interested myself. Coming in at number 52 is Taxi Driver.
Oh, okay.
I mean that's a movie.
That is a movie. Yeah.
So yeah, you've got a guy who see it once. Let's see. So you've got a guy. He's kind of feels like he's on the outs of society, kind of angry about a lot of stuff.
Because he is.
Yeah, and then he gets a gun and kills people.
Okay, you skipped like the whole movie. I mean, yes, that is the movie, but also it is very much. This is one I've watched a couple times, and it's one of Scorsese's earlier films, one of his better known, like in one of his movies that kind of puts him on the map, right? Puts Robert De Niro on the map in a way.
Are you looking at me? Are you looking at me?
I'm the only one here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Some iconic stuff there. Yeah.
Yeah. There's in context though, like you hear that line, like maybe you heard it in some comedy that was referencing it, or maybe you like heard a friend say it. And you're like, oh, you watch it the movie, you're like,
No.
you're like, uh oh,
Oh yeah.
that's not good.
No.
This is very bad. This is very bad. It's about a man who's basically mentally ill. He is mentally ill ultimately, and he is going down a path of destruction. And it's this sort of interesting. He's got this desire to like clean this, like it's like what a vigilante actually is, right? Like it's more like I do believe there are people who want to be vigilantes, who want to be guardians for good reasons, and who are sane. It's not like everybody who maybe would ever be a vigilante is not sane, but this man has like delusions and does not understand society, does not understand human interaction very well,
And he's not Daredevil.
and he's not Daredevil. So he's out. He is on the path of becoming a vigilante, and the thing is it plays the game of how is he insane? How mad is he? And the best part about the movie is that he's clearly outside society, clearly deranged, gets more and more detached from society. Excuse me, and he gets a gun and goes and shoots a bunch of people. Now, he is driven, I believe there's some sense of like he wants to protect this girl he knows who's a very young prostitute. So he wants to go save her from the life she's in, which she never asked for. And in a lot of ways, he may be making it worse for her. But he goes in and kills a ton of people to get her out. But the reason he does that is because he like wants to go kill people at the same time. Like, it's not just that he wants to protect this girl or some noble endeavor. There's this sort of grandiose delusion of that, but he also just wants to kill people. Or he also just wants to have meaning, or he also just can't understand things, and he keeps on thinking the city. I'm like, the city's so dirty, the city's so broken. I gotta clean up the city, and so he gets violent and goes and does it. And the craziest thing about it is he's called a hero, doesn't go to jail, and is back on the streets. And that's the scariest thing about the story. Is at the end of the movie, Robert De Niro went and shot a bunch of people, and he's called a hero by the press, and is back out there, and is still very much broken.
Yeah.
Scorsese, dude. Scorsese and the
Well,
writer, too.
Okay. So then my question to you is, in terms of Scorsese in general,
Yeah.
where would you put this in your top Scorsese movies?
It's not in my top of Scorsese. I prefer things like, well, let's see. I got to think of all the Scorsese. There's a lot of Scorsese, but I mean, when I think of Scorsese as a film that I thought was riveting to me or really hit me is a movie like The Departed, just because of how much that story weaved in and back and forth and things like that. It worked for me. It worked for me. Worked for me.
Did not work for Luke.
It worked for me. It did. Anyway, there's lots of. I like parts of games. There's things I like for Scorsese's filmmaking in bouts. I don't even know if any one movie is a movie I want to own and like watch over and over. But there's things about Scorsese's filmmaking and the way he does things that I'm very appreciative of. In Taxi Driver, I would put it maybe above some of his gangland epics that other people love, just because it's kind of the origin of how he goes into a character and you see like why that character perceives the world so differently. And at the same time, you understand enough about them and you understand what this is in the greater context. And it's kind of a condemnation of the thing, even though it's totally showing you the perspective of the thing. And it's kind of like it succeeds where Wolf of Wall Street and this whole other world of excess fails, because in that movie it feels like he's glorifying it all as opposed to condemning it, even though he's trying to. Whereas in Taxi Driver, he's going to the headspace of this person where it's deranged, and there's a lot of anger in the movie and like you get this sense of this isn't good, but it's still out there, and this is what it looks like.
Is young Jodie Foster in this movie?
Yes, that's one of her first roles, if not her first role.
Okay, so she's like 12 or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, and in the behind the scenes, here's a behind the scenes moment for you guys. Okay, so she's 12, and like the Richard's like, okay, she can't touch the fake drugs and she can't touch the guns, and because she's 12, right? Like you can't do this, right? But the special effects artist is like, hey, come over here. I'll show you how we do the brains when they blow somebody's brains out. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. He's like, yeah, what you do is you mix up your blood bag and all that stuff, and then you take a styrofoam cup and you smash it up into tiny little pieces and you throw it in there. And that's the gray matter in the skull bits that splatter against the wall. And she's like, that's awesome. And so, like, now, you watch interviews with her much later in life. She's like, I thought that was the coolest stuff ever. But, like, they didn't let me do anything cool because I was 12.
Well, one thing we've learned tonight is that Luke really, really likes behind-the-scenes stuff. But let's get on to our last movie for tonight. Coming in at number 51 is...
West Side Story.
Snaps?
West Side Story. West Side Story, gentlemen.
Okay, I do not believe that West Side Story is above these other couple movies that we...
Not even close. I'm sorry.
I realize that, like, Michael Bay really likes the, like, swoop and, like, camera around shot, that he likes. Yeah, that Michael Bay referenced that was one of his, like, favorite shots was in that movie, and he uses it all the time, this thing. This, like, swoop low... because he's like, I love it. I love the energy. And they're like, but you don't even understand what the shot does, except that it makes you feel good.
That's all you need to know. Michael Bay's entire career is based off of one shot in West Side Story, so maybe if they both were gone, we'd be okay. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, but like West Side Story, it definitely, like, from a production value standpoint, it feels very much like a stage production. Like they are moving cameras
It's
around.
that, it's
but
that kind of
what it
musical.
was.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. But it feels like one as a film. They are moving cameras. They are going to different locations. But like even the sets feel very much like a stage production. Like it just feels very stagey to me.
You know that Spielberg is in the process or has finished filming a remake of West Side Story.
With Natalie Wood as a Puerto Rican.
I don't even remember the casting. I just remember that Spielberg was doing this because it's West Side Story, and I don't because it's so stagey.
Yeah.
And it's a musical.
Mm-hmm.
It was never really in my world.
Yeah.
And I've never had the desire to really watch it. I of course know the snaps and the gang stuff. I mean, I can bring that reference up all day, but
It felt. I've seen it once. It was very stagey. And I didn't care. Yeah.
I mean, from the standpoint of what the story is, as in a adaptation of Shakespeare, like I'm kind of on board with it. I've never actually seen
Which Shakespeare is it adapting? I don't know anything. I know nothing.
what, Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Star-crossed lovers.
I didn't catch that at all. If you want a good Romeo and Juliet, then do Warm Bodies. That's great.
Or if you want a trippy Romeo and Juliet, do Romeo plus Juliet.
That one's trippy.
Okay then. I completely lost this conversation.
Yeah, because we don't care that much about Natalie Wood in West Side Story.
Okay. Well,
What about you, Scott?
I mean, we've been through 10 movies tonight.
Right, but what about you with West Side Story?
I've not seen it, so I don't.
Oh,
I don't know.
well,
I just
there you go, then.
I appreciate remakes of Shakespeare that have been modernized to a more current time frame, and I could.
Warm Bodies.
I mean, that's decent, but I've got other Shakespeare adaptations that I love. So maybe we'll have to talk about that in another.
That
episode.
could be an
No,
episode.
that's an episode.
All right, quick review, gentlemen, because we are each going to recommend one of these to our viewers tonight. Number 60, Duck Soup. 59, Nashville. 58 is The Gold Rush. 57 is Rocky. 56 is Jaws. 55 is North by Northwest. 54 is MASH. 53 is The Deer Hunter. 52 is Taxi Driver. And 51 is West Side Story.
Jaws. I want it.
North by Northwest.
Watch Jaws. If you haven't seen Jaws and you get scared of things, tough. Watch Jaws. It's great.
And if you've watched Jaws and you haven't watched North by Northwest, watch that one.
Yeah.
So you guys put Jaws and North by Northwest on there. I definitely think you guys have picked, in my opinion, the cream of the crop. But I'll go ahead. I will go ahead and I will put Rocky on there as well.
One of the only left choices left.
yeah, nothing else matters.
So thanks for joining us in this episode. We'll see you again next time.
I guess we could wave.
You normally say something after I say that.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And I'm losing all my quips, Scott. I've lost them all, man.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe all this talk of movies that shouldn't be in this list.
Well, we could just sing Eye of the Tiger.
It's the eye of the tiger. It's the thrill of the fight. Rising up to the challenge of your
rival. He doesn't know the words.
Eye of the tiger. Thrill of the
Turns out
fight.
we can't actually sing that song.